If your child is demonstrating any of those deficits, if they're having a hard time following directions, if they're not naming things, if they have a very low vocabulary, those are things that speech therapy really helps with. I like to think of speech therapy when it comes to language, so language therapy. Our brain, we have this big brain that is so capable of doing things, and you have very, very intelligent children who have language disorders. So what happens with these children who are very, very intelligent and have language disorders is that in our brain so I think of it two different ways. So the first way that I think is that our brain is just a huge room with a ton of different filing cabinets. So in our brain, you and I, we're able to go to, I know that the top shelf on the third over, that's going to have all of my animals. That's where all of my animals are stored. So when someone starts talking about emus, I can go to that file folder. I know exactly where it is. I know what color it is, and I can find out everything that I know. Okay, an emu is a large bird. We find that information. I can find that. However, our children with autism or that have language disorders, it's often very, very difficult for them. If you were to walk into their filing cabinet room, you would just see papers everywhere. They have no idea how to store that information. And then again, if you don't know how to store that information, you're definitely not going to know how to retrieve that information. And so speech therapy, language therapy, will target how to create this organization system. We do that with storytelling. We help them to be able to organize that information. Okay, there's a beginning, a middle, and end. Okay, let's break that down even further. What happens in the beginning? Oh, I have characters. Oh, I have a setting. Oh, and there needs to be a kickoff. If there's no kickoff, we just have the most boring story in the entire world where we're just talking about how Joe and his friends were sitting on the couch playing video games. And we see that a lot with our children with language disorders. They tell these stories that either are totally boring, where there's no kickoff, or they skip the kickoff and then go to other aspects. And so we're able to, speech language pathologists go in and we figure out how to teach their brain how to store this information. So now maybe they've had it stored really well, their receptive has been really great, but their expressive is really hard. So now they can't find that information. Another way that I like to look at the brain as far as language organization is that the brain is like a whole bunch of pathways. It's a map. And so for you and I, when I talk about, okay, let's talk about animals. If I were to say, name me all of the animals you can, you'd be able to name me 1,000 if I gave you enough time, right? So you have a super highway in your brain that goes from the category of animals to any other aspect of your brain, because you're able to find cows over here in farm, you're able to find lions over here in zoo animals or, African animals, you're able to find, barracudas, you're able to make all of these connections. So our kids with autism or language disorders, they have a very, very difficult time and with finding that information. They have a really hard time making categories or associations. And so what I compare their brains to is they just have little dirt paths that go from the animal category to any other animals spread out throughout their brain. And so again, language therapy goes in and we teach them how to make super highways. And we give them the skills that they need to know to how to create those super highways so they don't depend on me to create every single super highway. We teach them organization systems.